If you've planned your instructional design with the end goal in mind by creating clear, specific learning outcomes for your students, the logical next step is to support student learning by creating staggered milestones and pathways to help them reach those outcomes. Content, activities, or assignments that lead to student success. Before you begin, it's helpful to ask yourself questions like, how and when will I build on prior knowledge or skills? Should this be a standalone activity or a 5-part project? Ultimately, the question for a creative educator is, how will sequencing or scaffolding help my students to reach their full potential? Here is an example of an effective sequence or scaffolded learning project where students create their own podcast using Adobe Audition. The series of activities walks students through 4 stages of a scaffolded project, each intentionally designed to grow in complexity, provide time for feedback and self-reflection, and build on previous work. First, students analyze the credibility of a podcast. Next, students carefully analyze the rhetorical moves that authors make in a podcast by drawing on learnings from the previous activity. In the last 2 steps, students prepare to create, script, and interview for their own podcast, building on what they've learned. By the end of the unit, students have developed the skills and components they need to create their own unique podcast, including brainstorming, iterating, giving and receiving feedback, and trying new approaches. Let's hear how creative educators sequence or scaffold learning and creative work in their courses.
When I teach creativity, I make sure that it's a routine part of the instruction and not an add-on or a special activity here or there. Because when it's a regular practice like other skills, then you start to think about how to build on it and scaffold in complexity and spiral and return to things. You get to say to your students, remember when we did that rapid brainstorm last week? Well, this week we're going to do that same thing, but then add on to it a design thinking activity to break those ideas into themes or categories. Or you can say this time, rather than an independent brainstorm, you're going to generate ideas collaboratively in a small group.
Identify the large goals early so that students have a sense and a kind of buy-in to what the big picture goals are and a sense of where they're headed to. Then the best sort of thing that you can do again early on in the course is to make really small chunks, simply to demonstrate facility with a tool or with a concept, to demonstrate interest, or to sort of identify an interest even. So making things that are really, really achievable early on, like build a sense of confidence in students. And then finally, as you get towards the ends of the course or the project, to sort of throw open the doors and give students a lot of options.
As far as scaffolding and chunking skills and competencies, I start by beginning with the end in mind, looking at the skills and competencies and concepts students need to know, and students need to be able to apply, analyze, synthesize, evaluate, and in turn use that knowledge to create something new according to a performance-based task. In a creative classroom, that would be the same. It's all about moving students through the levels of Bloom's taxonomy, from knowledge through creation, and understanding that they come to us with certain intelligences, ways of learning, visual, kinesthetic, auditory, verbal, linguistic, and that we need to build on those and provide ways for students to use technology to enhance how they communicate their learning.